afternoon. Well, people start attending the session. Welcome for everybody joining. Let's give just a minute for everybody to participate. So good evening. This is the 127th branch meeting, October 9 today. I'll just start with the agenda for today. As usual, we go through the introduction and branch updates, followed by a presentation from Mark Kitt on creating a sustainable safety culture. And then after the presentation, we have some time for questions and answers and any other business before we close towards 10 to 7 o'clock. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them while we go on with the presentation of Mark. Few branch updates. We had a IIRSM participated in the Health and Safety Forum in Saudi Arabia last month. An initial safety forum, first time in Saudi, very successful. A lot of delegates and participants, and I think it was good for IIRSM to be present and kind of share the work we do for the members. So what was a good meeting with a lot of insightful presentations on what is happening in Saudi. We have a similar HSC forum scheduled to participate in next month. That's the MENA forum. IIRSM is in this forum as well, a media sponsor. So there's still some tickets available for reduced price or for IIRSM members. So if you have interest, please drop me a line in the WhatsApp group or via email, and I'm more than happy to guide you to the website where you can register and get your IIRSM discount. The program for the 2024 MENA forum is published. Is a full agenda, 2-day full agenda. Again, interesting topics, interesting developments within the Middle East and specifically UAE. So if you're able to attend, I would definitely recommend this. And again, IIRSM will be present at these 2 days as well. An update we shared last month, and I just, as a reminder, share it again. As part of the 50th anniversary of IIRSM, members can free upgrade to a, can get a free update throughout the months of September and October. So that means that you still have 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time to go for the upgrade to fellowship. So please use this moment to move that, and yeah, it's free of charge for the first year. Training updates. No new training courses on the website. So for 2024, there is still a Managing Health and Safety Risks, the Essential training scheduled for October 15th, and a Managing Risk, the Essentials for November 19th. And then we move into 2025 with the similar trainings, but that will start from January onward. So if you're still able and willing to participate in a training course 2024, then there are the last two for this year and otherwise 2025. Webinars, a few webinars scheduled for this year and early next year. So cyber resilience on October 14th, getting to the root cause on October 29th. And then for November, we have effective leaders create outstanding teams and instant investigation. And then into next year, from boardroom to bottom line. For the webinars, as well as for the branch meetings, please go to the IIRSM website to register yourself. The moment you have registered, you get, like for our branch meeting, an invite via email with the link, with the Zoom link to attend the meeting or the webinar. For the UK and Europe, a few branch meetings scheduled for the moment. So the London branch on preventing worker ill health on October 23. West Midlands branch has a branch meeting on October 24 on the path to fellowship. And then the Ireland branch, understanding brain-centered hazards, on November 20. At the moment, I have no insight in any of the Middle East branch meetings, so no active date known for the Saudi or the Qatar branch, neither for the Oman and India branch. I would say follow the website or check on our LinkedIn page. If any dates come available, we will post that on our LinkedIn page, and it will be posted on the website. For this year, we have two more branch meetings, November 13th and December 11th. And as I mentioned in previous meetings, we always would like to have a speaker. We often have an external speaker. Last month, we had one of our members presenting on monkeypox. And I would like to suggest that if there's any member, any attendee at the moment who wants to present something or wants to share a best practice, please reach out to me, and we can allocate some time for you in either the November or December meeting. Again, this is a members organization, so please share with us your best practices, and then we allocate time. For today, we have found Mark willing to guide us to creating a sustainable safety culture. Mark, welcome. Can I hand over to you and you introduce yourself to the team and guide us to how to create a sustainable safety culture?
Thanks, Branko. Yes, of course. What I'll do is I'll quickly just share my screen. Just you might have to drop out of yours, Branko, and I can share the screen here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, great. Look, greetings, everyone. My name's Mark Kidd. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Safe 365, which specializes in helping businesses build sustainable safety cultures. And so today I'd love to take you through what we're doing, what a number of our clients are doing around the world. And for us, we have been on quite a mission in terms of wanting to have a sizable impact on the global marketplace when it comes to effectively reducing harm in the workplace. And it's something that we're very passionate about as an organization. Our goal is quite aspirational, really. We want to support over 100 million employees globally, and we're well on the way to doing that. We work with over 10,000 businesses around the world, across 47 countries, but predominantly we work in countries like the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and the US. But recently we've started to move into the Middle East, and so we've been fortunate enough to pick up some clients and start working with them, like Saudi Rail in Saudi, but also Hamad International Airport in Qatar, starting with us this month. But my travels around the Middle East have definitely showed us an appetite for organizations to move effectively on from compliance and move into the next phase, which is around safety culture or organizational culture of safety. And that's now moved into a real focus on well-being. So today I'd like to share with you some of those insights, what some of these organizations are doing. You can see down the bottom there, some of our clients like Amazon and Heathrow and Maui and Luton Airport. In fact, I've just broken away from the Airport Safety Summit conference that we're running here in London to do this session, and in the room are 7 or 8 of our UK airport clients and many of their contractors in their supply chain like Donata and ABM and so forth. And I have to say, I'll share with you some of those insights that have come from the summit today. There's been some world experts sharing their thoughts on not just safety culture, but well-being culture. So during the course of this session, I'll share some of those insights that these experts have provided. Now, for us as a business, we're a combination of both a consulting business that helps organizations understand their safety culture, and then when they understand their safety culture, linking that into your programs of work, into your strategies, and then how you improve your safety culture over time. And one of the ways we do that is through data. And so we're very, very good at collecting data. We have over 800 million data points on our system. And how we use that is linking it through to insights that we provide organizations, and also benchmarking. And I'll share with some of that with you today. So the mission that we're on and what we're trying to do as an organization, just so you got some context as to who we are, we're in the business, as I mentioned, about trying to improve safety culture for businesses. And what we discovered was for a lot of businesses globally, that there's been a heavy anchoring towards compliance. And please don't get me wrong, compliance is really, really important, and it does reduce harm in the workplace. But eventually, it's your ability to keep on improving your harm is going to be reduced, and it will plateau. So what we saw and continue to see in the marketplace is organizations who do their compliance really well, and particularly airports who we work with, and we're in the rail sector and we're in the energy sector, and in fact, we're in every sector of the economy. Everyone typically is on the journey of making sure they've got their base foundation of compliance in place. And what we find is most organizations actually really do that well, and that does have a positive impact on harm in the workplace. But eventually, as I mentioned, it's going to plateau. And unfortunately, what we then see is organizations over-investing in compliance. And the reason they over-invest in compliance is that they haven't seen their harm continuing to reduce in the workplace. And so as a result of that, they start putting more money and resources into even more compliance, but they're actually already doing their compliance really well. And the reason they do that is because typically they lack data. And when you lack data, you lack insights. And if you lack insights, then effectively what that does in reality is it forces you to make decisions that you wouldn't normally make. And the challenge with that is disengagement. And so what we see often is at executive and board level is when safety people turn up to talk about their safety strategy and their programs of work, if they're asking the executive and the board to invest in these programs of work and strategy, then if your ability to keep on reducing harm in the workplace isn't improving, in other words, you're not reducing that, then the problem with that is you get disengagement at executive level, to the point where executives start to question the value of what safety brings to the organization. And so one of the things that we are absolutely focused on and have been for the last 10 years is building safety cultures. And so this is the piece from beyond compliance. So if you're an organization out there and you've done your compliance and you're doing it really well, and you're starting to see a reduction in benefit from that, then possibly you're at a stage of maturity as an organization and in your thinking where you need to go to the next level. The next level is safety culture. So this is about embedding into your DNA of your organization what you need to do in terms of the behaviors and the attributes and taking ownership and accountability for safety beyond compliance. They are two totally separate things, and they do interrelate. There's no doubt about that. But, our observation would be is the anchoring to compliance has resulted in an overinvestment in compliance without the actual return on investment for that investment. So the thing that we're focused on and our ambition is on the graph here, you can see there's a blue line, and we call the blue line the safety culture line. And then the red line is the poor safety performance outcomes line. The red line is effectively your lag indicators. So that might be your LTIFRs, your TRIFRs, whatever lag indicators your organization uses, then that's the red line. That's what you're trying to do, is actually reduce harm in the workplace. And you use those sorts of measures to do that. And as I was saying before, the problem with compliance, eventually that red line stops dropping. And what we've discovered is that if the organization then focuses its energy on building a sustainable safety culture, that blue line, then that blue line over time increases further. And what we're finding is the red line decreases. So the question is, has that made any difference at all? What I can share with you is some case studies. And I'll show you in a minute what safety culture looks like, but just to give you an idea as to, does this have any impact? Is it going to give us a return on our investment in terms of where we spend our time, money, and energy? Can we be assured that it's actually going to do something and have a positive impact? As I mentioned before, one of our clients is Heathrow. We've been working with Heathrow for the last 4 years. Then COVID came along, and then we restarted the journey 2.5 years ago. And what we did with Heathrow is what I'm about to show you, but just so you can see the impact over a period of 2.5 years. That blue line that I was referring to has gone up by 5% for Heathrow, and the red line has gone down by 29%. So in other words, their safety culture has improved by 5%, and their harm in the workplace has gone down by 29%. That's a massive, massive change. And the powerful thing about that was, when we finished doing the work in Heathrow, what Heathrow decided to do was pick it up and put it into their supply chain. So in their supply chain, they have 450 delivery partners. So they are the British Airlines, the Emirates, the Virgin Atlantics, the Donatas, the Menzies, the Maces, the Ferrovials. They are some massive companies globally, and I'm sure some of those you'll be well and truly familiar with. So what we decided to do was to do exactly what we did in Heathrow, because we could see the results in terms of reducing harm. Now, for all of those of you who are in larger organizations, you'll have quite extensive supply chains with delivery partners, suppliers, contractors, whatever you call them. And the challenge is, when you're a bigger enterprise organization, is you're only as good as the weakest contractor or supplier in your supply chain. So in other words, if everyone looks at risk differently and addresses that risk with solutions, the tightness of the ecosystem and the interdependency that goes on in that ecosystem. So Heathrow refers to themselves as a village. On any one day, there's over 100,000 workers on the Heathrow site. Only 5,000 of those are Heathrow workers. The rest are contractors or delivery partners. And the real challenge with that is In an ecosystem like that, what you tend to find is there's really strong interdependencies between not just Heathrow, but also between the contractors. And then, of course, within that ecosystem, there is a homogeneous labor pool. In other words, everyone's working on the same site. They basically understand the same risk that's going on, but if they're all approaching it differently, the same problem but with a different solution, then you're going to get different benchmarks of what good looks like. So what Heathrow decided to do was, because of the success we had at Heathrow, we picked it up and we dropped it into their supply chain with their 450 delivery partners. And over the last 2 years, that blue line has gone up by 3%, and the harm and reduction line has gone down by 26%. So in other of our clients, like Southern Cross Healthcare, for example, over the last 2 years, we've seen that safety culture line go up by 30% and the harm line go down by 34%. And there's been significant savings in what we call workers' compensation payments. So in other words, what we've found is insurers who we've been working with, so we work with 25 global insurers, AXA XL, Zurich, Star Aviation, QBE, AIG, we work with all of those. And their biggest concern is being able to understand the risk profile of their clients. And if they understand the risk profile of their clients when it comes to workplace harm, that has a direct bearing on one level, the amount of payments they have to make in terms of workers' compensation when someone gets injured, but equally in terms of premiums they pay in insurance. And so what insurers are really looking for, if you like, is a way to be able to measure the risk and health and safety profile and culture of an organization. And the wonderful thing about that for us is the work that we've done with using our data and insights to show the blue line and the reduction in the red line, has been able to demonstrate on the one hand to the Heathrows of the world, the Amazons, the Mercedes, that if you put your effort into safety culture, beyond compliance, put it into safety culture, you will get exponential returns in terms of reduction in harm. And so that's great for organizations who are looking to do that, but equally for their insurer, it has a positive impact on their insurer, to the point where, in the case of Heathrow, their insurer is now paying for the work that we do at Heathrow, because the insurer, being AIG, now understands, I think it's AIG, now understands the positive impact it has on reducing harm in the workplace. I'll come back to insurance in a moment, because this is a really important concept. And the reason it becomes really important for you as safety and risk professionals is when you get to talking to your executive team about why do you want to do this stuff? Why do you want them to invest in programs of work that you've put up as part of your strategy? They need to know that there's going to be a return on investment, and they need to know it's really tangible. And when you start using data, you start then providing insights, and then you can see what the impact is between moving that blue line and reducing the red line. So the question is, how do you do that? So we have a bit of technology, and it's pretty clever technology. We've won international awards, and our clients have as well. In fact, Heathrow won the international award for IIRSM about 3 months ago for the work that we've done with Heathrow and the work Heathrow's done around what I'm about to share with you. And part of our technology allows you to look at your business holistically. And so this is just a static screen. I can show you the digital product to show you that when I run my cursor across this, then what actually happens in reality is this all lights up, and you can go and click on it and go through to solutions and a whole bunch of things. But for the purposes of today, these elements that sit outside of the dashboard, there's 82 of those, and they all relate back to ISO 45001, 45003, 45009, and so forth, and 9000, and all the relevant ISO standards and best practice. And what we've done is we've grabbed all of those and we've put them into a digital platform so that businesses can get a very clear view on where their strengths and weaknesses are. So if you look at this dashboard on the left-hand side, You can see that there's some of these modules in red, some are in green, some are in amber, and you can obviously red is bad, green is good, and where you want to be is in the green space. And you might be in the amber space, but you're actually moving towards green over time. In the middle here, we have a thing called the safety index score. So this is measuring your safety culture. And this changes as you improve these elements over time. So the way that this works typically is we work with an organization saying we've done compliance, we've invested so much into compliance, but we know there's something else. So I was with an executive team, global executive team yesterday in the UK. They are in 130 countries globally. They've spent the last 20 odd years investing heavily in compliance. And in the last 18 months, they've had some horrendous injuries of their workers. And the question has been asked of them, what else is there? You know, if we're, sorry, I've just moved screens accidentally. My apologies. There we go. So the question that was being asked of the executive team was, we've invested heavily in compliance. We've got all our compliance in place. People can do log incidents and do checklists and all those sorts of things. But for some reason, we're now starting to see injury rates and harm in the workplace increasing again. There must be a different way of looking at this. And I can say after speaking with the executive team that they've done some amazing work on compliance. They've set the foundation in place. But over time, that started to erode, and they've invested more and more in compliance, trying to solve the same problem with even more solutions, but the return on investment has been going south effectively. And so what they're really interested in is understanding, what do you do next? And that's what this here is about for us, is if an organization can understand what its baseline safety culture is. So the way we do that is we typically run and we're about to do this with Hamad International Airport. And in their case, if you look on the right-hand side, there's 6 dashboards here. What typically happens is an organization says to us, hey, look, we know we've got different business units, they're at different ages and stages, they've got different leadership, they've got different appetite for change. We know that there are subcultures within the culture. And so what typically happens is we end up doing work with each of the business units. And each business unit ends up with a baseline dashboard like what's on the right-hand side of the screen here, as to what their safety culture looks like. So that on the screen, just to give you an idea, on the screen here is one of our energy companies that we have, energy and oil companies that we have anonymized. But you can see warehouse team, engineering team, accounts team, they all sit inside the same organization, but they've all got different safety culture dashboards. And because of those reasons I just explained, that's not surprising. Well, it's not to us. What you find is in an organization, each business unit or division or site around the world will have a different safety culture. And the trick is to know what's happening in each of those business units. If this was Heathrow, they've got 12 of these. Hamad International will have 12 of these, and then 20 for their supply chain. So they've got 20 major contractors in their supply chain that they want to know what's happening with those contractors when it comes to their safety culture. And this allows to give them visibility, if you like. So what typically happens is when we're with Hamad International later this month, each of their business units, we will run a baseline workshop with them, which takes about 2.5 hours to do. We'll send out a safety culture survey, which collects data as a key input into the assessment. And then we look at their systems and processes and policies and structure and strategy and all that sort of stuff. And then we run a workshop. And at the end of the workshop, this dashboard appears on the screen. So for the warehouse team, we would have a conversation at the end of 2.5 hours about their baseline safety culture. Where this departs from the traditional model. So the traditional model is you would probably go and get a consultant from Deloitte or DuPont or PwC who would come in, run workshops, talk to key stakeholders in your business, look at data and a whole bunch of things They would go away for 2 or 3 months, and then they'd come back with a paper-based report, and they would then hand you this paper-based report. They would give you some feedback on that. They'd say, here's the things you're weak at, here are the things you're strong at, here's the things we think you should be working on as part of your ongoing strategy. And then typically they wave goodbye and they disappear, and they come back in 2 years' time and they redo it all over again. The challenge with that is, while that gives you a baseline view of where you're at with your safety culture, and yes, it provides you with some really good insights into where your strengths and weaknesses are and where your gaps are and how that links to your programs of work. The problem that we've seen is then, what do you do next? And if I get time at the end of this, I'll quickly show you our digital product, because what this does is this gives you a baseline view of your safety culture. It allows you to link this to your strategy and programs of work, but then it allows you to use it continuously in real time. So you can change these elements as you're working on them. This module, as you're working on these couple of elements here, will gradually go into amber, and then it'll go into green. And so what this is turning into, if you like, is a continuous improvement product. This is really critical because this gets to the heart of sustainability. So on the one hand, you've done a baseline assessment, you understand where your strengths and weaknesses are, you understand what you need to do in terms of your strategy and your programs of work, but then you need to try and make it live and breathe in your organization. And the trouble with the traditional model is the expertise has left the building. And so you guys are sitting there going, what do we do next? And our digital product gives you the solutions and AI and a whole bunch of other cool stuff in there, which gives you real-time solutions to your problems that turn the reds into ambers and into greens. And that safety index score changes over time. And we can track it, we can see it moving, and then we can benchmark you. We can show you where you sit relative to others in your sector. So the key thing about this is, if you went through a process, what you need to do is you need to understand what your baseline is. Where are you good at things now? What do you need to improve on? And if you know that, that allows you to invest in the right programs of work. It also allows you to have a really meaningful conversation with your executive. What we've found over the years is in the absence of this, it's really difficult for executive and board members to truly visualize what you're talking about as safety and risk professionals. And the challenge is trying to, the way I think about it is transfer safety language into business language, but also have a common language. And what you find with risk and safety professionals, because you're so deep in what you're doing and you're experts in your field of expertise around risk and safety, is over time you start to use jargon and acronyms and a whole bunch of things to describe things like LTIFR, lost times and injury frequency rate. Well, an executive team member doesn't understand what that is. But we use those terms all the time. And the problem with that is, when we go to the executive team and we go to the board and we start talking about the things that we need to do to improve our safety culture, if you're talking to them and showing them lots and lots of data, the challenge is sometimes you're talking past each other. And I've seen it so many times where executive board members and team members are really wanting to understand what the problem is, but they can't visualize it. And the powerful thing about the dashboard on the screen here is it allows executive team and board members to understand what you're saying in safety language. They can translate it into business language. And how they also do that is by asking key questions like, how do we know if we do this, it's going to have an impact on the business? How do we know it's going to reduce harm in the business? And how do we know that it's going to have a positive impact on our employment brand, our productivity, and our efficiency? And is it going to have an impact on our P&L? So our profit and loss. And when you start then talking about insurance to them, then what you're doing is you're translating safety language into business language, and you can show them visually what does that mean. So for example, if you've gone through a process and you looked at your baseline safety culture, the next thing you really want to know is how do you compare? And you compare on several levels. In terms of the dashboard here at the bottom of the screen with 56 in it, you're comparing yourself against international best practice and ISO standards. That's what you're comparing yourself with. But the other point of comparison you want to know is how do you compare against that? You'll all be familiar with the Bradley curve and what DuPont came out with. We've created our own step. It's not a curve, it's a step ladder. And where you want to be is at the maturity end of that. What we find globally is businesses tend to be in that middle bracket, which is the 40 to 59% bracket. So in other words, their safety index score in the middle here is somewhere between 40 and 60%. Now, bearing in mind, if you're an organization with a score of 60%, then you're roughly doing your safety at a compliant level. Where you want to get to is beyond 60%. And what we know from the tens of thousands of businesses we work with globally, most of them are in the 40 to 60%. So in other words, we've got a long way to go. We do have businesses who are all green, their dashboards are all green, and they're in the 80%. We've got one in the 90, and that's a major global business it's got 91%. And when you talk to their executive team about safety and safety culture, they know it inside and out. They know what it means, how to apply it, what it means for their business, how it impacts on their commerciality. They can walk around the construction site or whatever it might be. They can look at risks and understand what those risks are, and they can also have conversations with frontline staff about safety culture and about compliance. But there's only one organization globally who's in the 90s. As I say, most of them are in that 40s to 60s. Now, where this bit starts to become important for you as safety professionals is that process I've just explained to you allows you to understand what your current safety culture is. You can link it to your programs of work, you can link it to your strategy, and then you can use the process and the technology to take you on a continuous improvement journey, and you can measure your ROI improvement. Where this becomes really important for engaging with your executive team is turning that safety language into business language. And as I mentioned earlier on, we're working with 25 global insurers, and we've had some amazing results around demonstrating to them what Heathrow's been able to do. You know, the 5% increase in safety culture, the 29% reduction in harm, resulted in Heathrow for the first time ever in their history getting an insurance bursary from their insurer. And then that's gone a step further, and their insurer is now giving them bigger bursaries, which is a direct impact on their profit and loss. So in other words, Heathrow isn't paying for some of their safety interventions, it's their insurer who's paying for it. And the reason the insurer is paying for it is because they've seen the reduction in harm. So one of those organizations that we've worked with in the last 2 years, just to put that into context, one of those organizations has seen in the last 2 years a $10 million, this is outside of obviously the UAE and the UK, a $10 million reduction in workers' compensation payments. So in other words, the insurer has saved themselves $10 million over 2 years in not having to pay out workers' compensation payments to the organization they're insuring. But equally, if you're the insured organization, then you can go to your insurer, and we do this. So for example, Thames Water, the work we're about to commence with Thames Water is being financed by AXA XL. The work that we're doing with Donata in the US at the moment is being sponsored by, I think it's AIG or Star Aviation Insurance. The work we're doing with ABM in the US is one of those two as well. The work we're doing with City of London is being sponsored by Zurich, that they're putting in some insurance bursaries. And the reason they're doing that is because it has a positive impact on their payments that they have to make as an insurer. But the positive impact for the insured is in terms of insurance bursaries and getting some really cool safety work done for them free of charge, in effect. So it becomes a zero-sum game. Now, when you explain this to executives and boards about why you're going down a path of safety culture, and you can demonstrate the measurable impact that it has through reduction in harm, but then you can link it to insurance outcomes and also to productivity and efficiency. And then on top of that, you can benchmark it to others in your sector. What you're starting to do is creating a consistent language, a safety language that everyone understands. So you as safety and risk professionals, you live and breathe this stuff. Executive and board members don't. It's just one of 20 or 30 things they need to be across. They need to be around across marketing, revenue, customers, operational effectiveness, all of those things, and safety. And so they've got all these disciplines they need to be across. So they need to be presented something that is really simple, easy, and practical and very visual, so they can understand what you're communicating to them and the impact that has on their business. One of the things that that's safety culture in a nutshell. So really happy to take some questions on that as to what is that. Everyone does get confused. I mentioned earlier on, compliance is the stuff that you legally typically have to do to make sure you're legally compliant. Then beyond that, into safety culture, it's really around your moral and ethical responsibilities. And the piece past that is around your commerciality. So how do you use safety as an intervention in your organization, not just to reduce harm, but actually to improve your business performance and your commerciality? And how do you use it in a way that gets a message across to your executive team? One of the really interesting things that happened to us 2 years ago, when I was out talking to our clients here in the UK, they said to us, Mark, we love your safety culture product. We can see how it impacts positively on our safety, sustainability, and culture and performance and reduction in harm. But where is your well-being? And we ended up hosting an event at Amazon, one of our clients. We invited 50 of the leading directors of safety and health and safety and well-being in the UK, from the likes of Visa, Apple, Google, Heathrow, Luton, Sainsbury's. We invited them all into a room and we said to them, what is your biggest problem with well-being? And they said, well, well-being is directly linked to your safety culture. You know, it's your health part of your health and safety. It's just that over time, everyone's focused on safety and forgot about the health piece. And now we've tried to differentiate it by saying well-being, but it's really health and safety. And they said, well, the problem we've got is, and we spent the morning doing this in a workshop with 50 directors. We brought in 3 international wellbeing experts into that discussion. And we said, what is it that you don't like about wellbeing? And they said, well, the problem is we've been using various interventions, mobile apps for logging your sleep and your walk and your eat and all that sort of stuff. All good point solutions, but it doesn't give us a holistic view of our well-being culture. We've got a holistic view of our safety culture. What we need now is a holistic view of our well-being culture. And so in the afternoon, we said to them, well, what does good look like? If you had to start something from scratch, what would you, as practitioners in the market, want to understand? And they said, we need to have a holistic view of our wellbeing culture. So fast forward 2 years, with many meetings with the steering group and that group of directors, we've created this here, which you can see that the dashboard looks remarkably like the safety culture dashboard I just showed you. The difference is these elements that sit in here all directly relate to ISO 45003. And then this last module with these elements here, these are best practice psychosocial risk elements. And so what we've done is we've picked up ISO 45003 and we've put that into our technology, and then we've put in best practice psychosocial elements and we've put that into the technology as a way that businesses can start to understand their wellbeing culture holistically relative to a standard. So last week, Heathrow rolled this out to their organisation because they wanted to understand where are they at the moment, where are their strengths and weaknesses with wellbeing, how does that link to their existing strategy and programs of work? And then what should they do effectively to improve that over time? And I know my discussions in the Middle East, been talking to various organisations like Ajman Tourism and Department of Tourism Culture in Abu Dhabi, and to Red Sea Global and others. There's a real push in the Middle East around understanding well-being, and yeah, I'd love to talk to you a bit more about this. I just wanted to share it with you because I know that it's become such a focal point in the Middle East around not just understanding compliance and safety culture, but then what do we do about well-being? And I suppose the word of caution for you is the experience in the UK over the last 7 years. They've experimented with those apps. They call them fruit bowl and yogurt apps, is the expression they use. In other words, how many apples have you eaten today? How many steps have you taken? How long have you slept? Are you stressed? How are you feeling today? They are all really good apps, and they provide you with a particular view on how an individual is feeling and how that aggregates up. What we've created here is a holistic view of the organization. So what you'll find is that those mobile apps are probably sitting in here in one of these elements only. And so what you want to know as an organization is holistically, where do you sit in terms of your well-being culture? And if you understand that, that allows you to invest in the programs of work you need to invest in, where you put your time, money, and energy, and then track its improvement over time and benchmark it. And then benchmark it against a standard, ISO 45003, benchmark it against other organizations, either in your industry or wider than that. And then because we do a survey, a wellbeing survey, you can benchmark yourself against the engagement level over time, but you can then benchmark yourself against engagement in other organizations. It gives you a holistic view of your wellbeing culture and where you're at and what you need to do about that. So I'm just conscious that I've been speaking for 20 minutes or so. I'm really happy to take any questions from the group today. Please fire them at me. I've given you a once over lightly. I am in Abu Dhabi tomorrow until Tuesday and Dubai on Wednesday. So if anyone wants to have a deeper conversation about this, please let me know. That's my email address there. Just send me an email and happy to meet up. But any questions?
Yeah, maybe I can start off, Mark. Thank you very much for the very insightful way of working. I think that's really good. The one question I would have is, you shared with us the safety index, mentioning that majority of the organizations are somewhere between the 40 and 59%. What is your experience with management self-assessing themselves? The reason I ask is that I see quite often that the managers around me often thinks that they are higher on this ladder, that they are very positive and I would say often to the proactive or leading phase. And what's your experience? What's the response to the reality check if that seems to be different?
No, really good question, Branko. We've done research on this, and we did it with 600 organisations and 3 supply chains, where we did facilitated assessments, and then organisations could do self-assessments. So in other words, the organisation is sitting there without one of our risk and safety experts facilitating the conversation. And the difference between a self-assessment versus a facilitated assessment with an expert facilitating that is 2% difference in the safety index score. There was one outlier, and the outlier had a dashboard that was all green. And we know from our benchmarking that can't be right. And so we went back and looked at that, and we discovered that the person who did the self-assessment was their marketing person. And the marketing person, for obvious reasons, because if you can demonstrate you're good at safety, typically that's an indication that you're probably good at being a contractor or delivering services. And the marketing person did that, and we went back to them and said, "Oh, look, can we find out who actually did the self-assessment?" And then we redid the assessment, and it went from in the 80s down into the 40s. So there's an aspect around self-assessment versus facilitated assessment. So there's a difference, but the difference isn't as dramatic as what you think. It's 2% on that safety index score.
Okay.
Then there's another element. The other element is, as part of the facilitated assessment, what we do is we send out a safety culture survey in advance. So that goes out to all the workers in the organization, and we collect that data. And that data gives you really powerful insights as to how the workforce see various elements inside this dashboard here. And so we run that safety culture survey, and also with the wellbeing product, we do the same with the wellbeing product. And the reason we do that is that data is a key input into the facilitated conversation. And that then starts to challenge some of that groupthink or overrating that you're referring to, Branko. It's a really powerful counterbalance to people overestimating their capability, because I can still remember, I'm sure, I probably can't mention, a well-known organisation in the UK, we're running a facilitated session. We got round to the last module here. So this last module is all about culture and behaviours, right? And the head of safety said, "Oh, well, we do this really well, and we do this, and da. And then a wee voice inside the room. So what they had was 12 people inside the room for the workshop. It was senior management, middle management, frontline staff, their health and safety people, and their safety reps. And it was a cross-section of people who knew the business incredibly well and knew what the safety profile and performance of the business was in the workshop. That's really critical, because then you start to get calibration inside the workshop. And then there was this little voice at the back of the room who said, "We don't do that." And it was the safety rep from the front line. So the head of safety was saying, "Hey, we've got this, we've been doing all this cool stuff around this aspect of safety. We've got a safety policy. We've got a safety program. We've done all this cool stuff." And in his mind, he thought it was done. So it's that work imagined versus work done.
Yeah.
And the little voice at the back of the room said, "I'm sorry, but we don't do that." And then we looked at the survey data, and the survey data was telling us, yes, they don't do this. And that brought into this calibration. So it's not going to be perfect. You're quite spot on for raising this, Branko. It's not going to be perfect. But what we've found is when it's positioned well in your organization, so in other words, it isn't a case of doing this to make everyone feel good. It's a case of truly understanding what your safety culture profile is, your baseline. And if people understand that, and then that then links to your strategy and your programs of work. So in other words, workers and management can see that if you're doing something about this as an organization, then what we find in year 2, sometimes this safety index score comes back. It actually drops. And this is to your point, the real cleverness of this is the gamification, because what you're creating is a model where people, and we've seen this in our clients, you walk into some of our clients' reception and they'll have their dashboard in reception and they'll be showing it off and they're really proud of it. And then over time it moves from 34 to 38 to 43 to 50, and they can see the movement over time. That's the gamification in there. But sometimes they have to realize that this is a really rigorous process you do at the front end. And if you do it right, it links into your strategy and your programs work, which means things get done. And what we find sometimes with some, not all organizations, is that dashboard actually comes back a bit because they now realize it's not about gaming it. It's about truly understanding what your risk and safety culture profile is so you can do something about that. And that, I think that's the power of it. Did that answer your question, Brinker?
Yeah, definitely. If I continue that, how frequently do you do this assessment? Because I assume it's not a one-off. It's you want to measure the progress, and I think that probably aligns with a question I see from Abdul, who asked, "How do you calculate the increase in safety culture percentage?" But I think it's doing the questionnaire more frequent.
So what I'm pulling up on the screen here is actually the digital product. So what you've been looking at is a flat screen presentation.
Yeah,
This here is our digital product. And to answer your questions, each one of those elements, when you're down here, you're not doing it well. When you're doing it up here, you're doing it well. And if I click on, say, so this is to do with your board. And you can see these are the elements that relate to your board. And our
yep,
system has a risk algorithm which calculates for you what you need to be working on. But if I click on, say, induction, so this is to do with your board. Has your board been inducted? So do all directors receive an induction in the company's health and safety? Now, inside the product is a maturity scale. And depending on your current state of maturity, you would rate it as, say, no, we haven't inducted our board directors. And as you're doing that, you may well put in here some notes. I need to check on Gary. Has he been inducted? You
yep,
can assign actions. So inside the product, as you're doing the assessment, you're assigning actions to people, and there's an actions board in here that shows you what's happening. And then inside the system is a whole bunch of resources and AI inside the system, which gives you real-time solutions to trying to solve this problem. So you're sitting down here as an organization, you haven't inducted your board directors. It's one of those 82 elements that sits on the
yeah,
dashboard. You've said, hey, look, honestly, we haven't inducted our board directors. And inside the dashboard, that's that element that sits right down here. That's that very first element. If I click on that again and I go back into where we were, that was the question that was asked in the workshop. And then you might use these resources here, if you don't have any, to actually improve this. So over 6 or 7 weeks, you induct your board directors and do a whole bunch of things. And you come back into the system 3 or 4 weeks later and you change your rating. And so you can see in here, that element, in fact, the module's gone from red to amber. That element that was sitting here is now sitting up here. You're still in amber, so you might click on that again and go, okay, what do we work on next? So this is now a continuous improvement
yeah,
product. So
yeah,
the bookends I was talking about before, getting a Deloitte or whoever in to come in and do an assessment, they give you the report and they wave goodbye. What our product does is it turns it into a continuous improvement product. So it's saying now focus on this. So we click on that. Risk expertise. So the question was, do one or more directors have risk management expertise? When you did the workshop, you said no. Again, you can see it's exactly the same setup. There's
yeah,
resources in there. There's notes that you've made. You've assigned actions. And then you've said, actually, we're doing this really well. 3 weeks later, you go back into the product and you change your, oh, now it's gone to green. So the
yeah,
module's gone from red to amber to green. And those two things, those two programs of work that you've worked on for the last 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, you've now changed the rating and the safety index score has gone up. Now,
yeah,
to answer your question, not all of these elements have the same risk weighting. They're all weighted differently. And the way that we've calibrated that is this element here, for example, so this is induction of your management. This has a 2.2% impact on your safety culture. So in other words, the key enablers and blockers in your organization are your management. And if your management haven't been inducted in good good health and safety culture, they don't know what it looks like, then they can't lead and cascade that through your organization. So this has a 2.2% rating,
Yeah.
whereas this one here, which is induction of your board executive, it has less than 1% rating because the impact on your organization is less. So
Yeah.
each one of these elements has a different risk weighting that we've applied across tens of thousands of businesses. So we know, and we recalibrate it every now and then, but we're pretty confident we've got it right now. If you focus, just to show you, I'll click on this.
Hmm.
So you see it's 54%. Change the rating now to being a rock star.
Yeah.
And if we go back into the product again, this has gone
Yes.
out to here, and
Yeah.
the index score has gone to 56% from 54%.
Yeah.
Does that
So
answer
this
your
is this.
question?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think so. What I get from this is as well is that these questions are answered during a workshop, so it's not a questionnaire sent to a large group of employees.
Correct. There's two things though. There's the safety culture survey that you determine who it goes to as an organization. And it might go to everyone in the business.
Yeah,
So Saudi Rail, for example, it went out to everyone in every division.
yeah,
And that information came back as a safety culture survey. Then that becomes a key input into this.
yeah,
So when you're running that facilitated workshop, like we did with Saudi Rail, for example, Liam, who's a ex-Deloitte's risk and safety professional, now works for us. He went through each one of these elements in that workshop with the participants, and he was referring back to the safety culture survey that had come back from the staff
yeah.
as a check and balance against, are we overinflating this?
That survey, that's a question from Celestine. Is that anonymous for the employees? Just to take
Totally.
out any kind of um, you know, colleagues not willing to give the real answers if they know it can be tracked.
Look, it has to be.
Yeah,
There's no other way of doing it.
yeah.
Is
No,
people
I
need to
agree.
feel really confident that when they complete that survey, it can't be linked back to them. You want people to fill it in honestly and heart and soul in terms of their responses. And you as an organization need and want that, because what you're trying to do when you run your first baseline assessment is you need a baseline. And you need everyone to be really honest and upfront about this. And so by making it anonymous, it allows people to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I hope, Celestine, that your question is answered with that. I see two more questions. Well, what one question is, how do you calculate increase in safety? I think we have answered that one. And the other one is just a big thank you for your explanation and guiding us through this method. And I kind of fully agree with that. I think it's visually very attractive. It's good to see the live model behind it. Because that's what people want to see, isn't it? That's what people want to see. Do we make progress? The action list to it. And I think we all have seen too often that we fill in a questionnaire, we don't get responses, and then, a year later we fill in another questionnaire. So it's good that you have the immediate actions linked to the
Yeah,
different.
and the other thing, Branko, is, and I haven't shown you today, is the benchmarking we do. Invariably, when you get to your executive team and you do this, at some stage they're going to say to you, but how do we compare? And so
Yeah.
we provide you benchmarking data to others in your sector, in your country, and against global. And so the executive team always get quite excited about that. Where are we at on the journey? How do we compare to ISO standards and best practice? How do we compare to others? And so there's a whole piece I haven't shown you today around benchmarking, but as I said, look, I'm in Abu Dhabi tomorrow for 5 days and then Dubai. Anyone who wants to have a deeper conversation around this, please just email me. Happy to sit down and spend some time with you. It's a passion we have. We're a social impact organisation. We share our information freely. So more than happy to do that with anyone on this call.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions popping up. So I think it's good. It's 7 as well. So let us end the session. Mark, again, thank you. And we definitely catch up somewhere in the UAE at a point in the near future. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully provided some insights today. And as I say, if you want to know more, just email me, and happy to talk it through. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. To the rest, all a good evening. And yeah, let me know if there's any questions. Reach out to Mark directly, or just use the WhatsApp group to get back to the committee. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Marco.
See you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.